Hello and welcome. This is Angie with thecountrysheetcottage.net. So today we're going to do a little experiment. We're going to talk about each of the Cricut machines. We're going to talk about the Cricut Joy, the Cricut Explorer, and the Cricut Maker. I'm actually going to make the components of one project, but I'm going to make one component with each of the three machines. Now, if you have the Cricut Maker, you could absolutely do the whole project on one machine. If you have like the Cricut Explorer, you could change some of the surfaces that I'm going to use and you could make the whole project. The Cricut Joy, you could change some of the things I'm going to use. But just to kind of illustrate the differences between the machine, I thought I would make one component with each of the machines and talk about the machines themselves and the differences between all three. So we're going to start with the Joy. I like to call this one Mighty but Mini. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the size. The size of the Cricut Joy is much smaller than the size of the Cricut Maker or the Cricut Explorer. The Maker and the Explorer are basically the same size. The Joy, however, as you might be able to tell, is significantly smaller. So the very first thing I tell people when they are thinking about which Cricut machine they want to buy is if space is a constraint, the Joy is definitely something you want to consider. If space isn't a constraint, then you can pick and choose between all three machines, but the Joy still might be for you. So let's take a look at a project with the Joy, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the Joy machine, what you're going to cut with it, and then we'll move on to the other two. So let's go over all the supplies you would need. So for the Joy, we're going to make a paper wreath. So I'm going to use this wire wreath form, and I'm going to use some green cardstock, any green cardstock that you would like. For the Cricut Explorer series, I'm actually going to cut some natural wood veneer into some words. So you would need the Cricut natural wood veneer, and I am using the walnut version. For the Maker, I'm going to use Cricut basswood as well as some staining cloths to get a stain on those. So I'm going to cut some letters from the Cricut basswood, and I've got the 11 by 11 size sheet to do that with. So that will be our project with the Maker. And then we're going to pull all three of these projects together. So we're going to pull the Joy project, the Explorer project, and the Maker project into one big sign. So for that, I'll need a sign board. So this is a large sign board, as well as some white paint. So let's get started. First of all, I'm going to start with the Joy project. So I went ahead and added a coat of paint to the sign. Now I'm going for a rustic look, so I added like really light coat, so you can even see some of the raw wood through my paint, which is the look I'm going for. If you want like a more finished look, if your board isn't quite so rustic, you can do, a couple good coats of paint over the top, just depending on your style. So now let's jump in to our Cricut Joy project. So you can actually make the wreath with just one sheet of paper and your mat. So you'll need the mat to cut paper with the Cricut Joy. And then we're going to cut this to 4.5 inches wide, and that will fit across our mat. And we'll just cut two pieces, 4.5 inches wide. Then we can put each of those on the mat, and the leaves I have on the design are like 15 will fit on each 4.5 by 12 sheet, so we'll have like 30 leaves in the end. The cut file for all of three of the projects will be linked in the description below, so be sure to head there to get the cut file itself if you want to make these projects. So the Joy itself can cut small items, obviously. So we had to trim our 12 by 12 paper because the maximum size on a mat is 4.5 by 12. Now, the Joy can cut matless. So vinyl, iron-on, that type of thing, it can actually cut really long rolls. So it can cut up to like 4.5 feet of a single design, or like 20 feet of a repeating design. So you can definitely get long projects out of a very small machine, but if you're going to cut paper, you're limited to the 4.5 by 12. All right, so let's take a look at the Joy. The fine point blade is the only blade that comes with it. So it is for thinner materials. So it is for things like paper, iron-on, vinyl, that type of thing. But these materials are super common when you're making projects, so the Joy might be the only machine you need. So the Joy actually doesn't have any buttons either. So if you've ever seen me use the Joy, you'll know it doesn't have any buttons. And you actually use the app for all of your functions. So I'm gonna connect it via Bluetooth. And so you can do this on your computer, you can do this on a mobile phone, you can do this on like a tablet device. And then right here in the app, I'm gonna set my material. So I'm going to set it to medium cardstock. And then once this light is flashing, the app tells me to load my material, I can. So it's telling me what tool to use, and it's telling me to load my material. So the great thing about the Joy is you actually just start sticking the material in and it pulls it in for you. The other great thing is it measures the material for you, so you don't have to worry if you don't have enough or not. And then when it's done with all that, right in the app, it has you to press go. Then once it's done, it'll prompt you to unload right in the app, or try again where you can cut over the same area again. So what I like to do is start lifting up the bottom and making sure my cardstock is cut all the way through. And it is, so I'll go ahead and unload my material. So here's my second mat all done. So each of these need to be removed from the mat, and I just wanted to share flipping it over and kind of bending the mat back is a great way. So these are pretty delicate and you don't want to rip them as you take them off. So I'm just going to give that tip if you're wondering how to get them off your mat. So I'll just continue working on these and then we'll put our wreaths together. All right, now that all our leaves are cut, what we want to do is take each one and sort of bend the leaves up towards the center. So this just creates more of a 3D effect when they're actually on the wreath. So I'm going to take each one of these and just slightly bend the leaves up on both sides. And then we will start gluing them to our wreath form. So then we'll want to take a hot glue gun and just glue each of these in place. So you just want like a tiny dot of glue to connect it to the wire, and you want it to slightly hang off. Now you can fill as little or as much of this wreath up as you want. So I cut like 2 sheets of these leaves, which is like 15 per sheet, so about 30. But you could definitely cut more or less, just depending on what you want to do. So I'm just going to continue adding these in randomly. Be sure to add them to both sides. And I'll just continue adding leaves and then we'll take a look at the wreath finished. So here's what 30 leaves look like on an 8-inch wire wreath form. So if you're making an 8-inch wreath and you want the whole thing to be filled up, then I would recommend doubling the leaves. So that would be 60 leaves. If you want fewer, you could cut fewer. If you have smaller or larger wreath, you might have to play with the amount. So there is our finished wreath, all with Cricut Joy. So that was our first project, all with the Cricut Joy. So you could make this wreath in any size you wanted to, right? So just because the Cricut Joy is small, doesn't mean you have to make small projects with it. So it cuts simple materials. So think of it that way. Simple machine, simple materials. Super simple machine, super simple design, one blade. You just like put the material in and it feeds it in for you. Very intuitive. Cricut Design Space walks you through everything. But even though that mat is super small, we can make big projects with it, right? So we can divide things up, make tons of these leaves, make a full wreath as big as we want to. We could make vinyl that I talked about, so up to 4.5 feet for a single design, or 20 feet repeating. So huge signs you could make with the small, simple Cricut Joy. Now, if you're that person that wants to step up a little bit, so the Cricut Joy is great, but I want to step up a little bit. Cricut Explore series. So now let's take a look at the Cricut Explore series. We're going to take it one step further, and we are going to make something with the Cricut Explore. Now, everything that the Cricut Joy can make, the Cricut Explore can make, except for those long cuts. So the Cricut Explore series always needs a mat. The largest mat is a 12 by 24. So that means the cutting size is about 11.5 inches by 23.5 inches. So that's your cutting area, and that's kind of what you're limited to. Now you can do some things like tile those larger projects, but you need to keep that in mind when you're comparing those machines. But the Cricut Explore series, you add print then cut, so you can now print something and then cut it out as a design. It also adds the deep point blade, and that's what we're going to use today. So the deep point blade opens up a few more materials, more than you can cut with the Joy. So the material we're going to cut today with our Cricut Explorer 2 is actually a wood veneer. So really thin wood product, but it adds something amazing to projects like the sign we're making today. Here we go with our Cricut Explorer 2, showing you just how to use it and how it can make your crafting so much easier. So for this portion of the project, you'll need your Cricut Explorer 2. You'll need a strong grip mat. You'll need the wood veneer, and I'm going to use the walnut shade, a brayer, as well as some masking tape. Now the Cricut Explorer 2 needs to be fitted with the deep point blade. So the blade it comes with is the fine point blade, and the deep point blade is an additional purchase, but it allows you to go deeper for products like this wood veneer. So the wood veneer comes in a box that looks like this. It's actually the Cricut brand, and there's 2 sheets to a package. And so I like this dark. I'm going to like it against that white of the sign, but it actually comes in 2 other shades as well. So if you don't like the dark, you can definitely get a lighter shade. Now you can see that it's super thin, right? So I can bend it. It is all real natural wood, but it is really, really thin. So we're going to put this on our strong grip mat, because we want it to hold really, really well while we cut. And then that's where that brayer comes in. So you're just going to roll that over the surface to make sure that this is down really well on the mat. And then, just an extra insurance, I'm going to add masking tape all the way around the outside edge. Alright, so now that our wood veneer is down on the mat, we can use our Cricut Explorer 2 to cut it. Alright, so my dial set to custom, and I picked natural wood veneer right in Cricut Design Space. And now I can load my mat with my wood veneer attached. Now, you do not have to move the white star wheels over to the side when you're doing wood veneer. The wood veneer is fine. And so then we're going to start our cut. Now this will do several passes, but once it's done, we'll take a look at our finished piece. Alright, so once your machine is done cutting, I do recommend making sure this is cut all the way through. Any kind of thick material I usually check before I remove it from the machine. So while it's still in the machine, I can actually hit this C button again, and it will cut again. So if it just needs like one more pass or something, that's the way to go ahead and get it through. So what I do, I'm just kind of removing the tape on a couple of the sides, and then I'm just going to gently start pulling this up, and I can see that it is cut all the way through. You can also use something like a weeding tool to kind of lift up. Be sure to lift up a place where you don't need it. So I wouldn't lift the word up, I would lift like around the word. But everything looks fine. So we're just going to remove this from our Cricut, and then I'll show you how to remove it from the mat. Alright, so now we can remove all of this tape around the outside edge. So tweezers are recommended to remove this if you need them. You may not need them. So I'm going to kind of flip it over, and I'm just going to start slowly peeling back. And as you can see, the excess is coming off, but the cut piece is staying on my mat, which is fine. So we're just gonna go ahead and remove this part. And then I can actually put this back in the package and I can use this part for another project, so I'll do that. And then we just want to kind of start removing this. So I'm going to flip it over again and I'm going to start using these tweezers to get underneath this wood, and you just want to be really careful. So this is thin wood and now it's cut into a thin word. So we just don't want to break it. So for me, the name of the game is going slow here and just slowly peeling that off of the mat. So now you can see one of the final words, and then we just need to get these insides of these letters out. So often they just kind of pop out as you push them, and there we have a finished word cut from wood with our Cricut Explorer 2 and the deep point blade. Now I'll remove this other word and this will become part of our sign at the end. All right, so now we've used the Cricut Explorer 2 and we cut that thin wood veneer into a couple words, and these all go on our sign at the end. Now, so maybe you said, yes, I want all of the functionality of that Cricut Explorer 2. I want to be able to use that deep point blade. I want that print and cut function. Like, I need the Cricut Explorer 2 in my life. The question now is, do you want to step up to the Cricut Maker? The Cricut Maker steps up from the Cricut Explorer 2. The Cricut Maker opens up a whole new world. So the Cricut Maker can do everything the Cricut Explorer 2 can do, which can do everything the Cricut Joy can do, except for those long cuts like we talked about. Again, the Cricut Maker has the same cutting size as the Cricut Explorer 2, so about 11.5 inches by 23.5 inches. The Cricut Maker adds a ton more functionality. So it's going to come with the fine point blade, just like the Explorer 2 and the Cricut Joy, but it's also going to come with a rotary blade. The rotary blade cuts fabric without a backing. The Explorer 2 will only cut fabric that has a backing attached. So you have to put some kind of backing on it to stiffen it up. The Maker can cut just about any fabric. I've not found a fabric it won't cut with that rotary blade. And it's just like a miniature version of a rotary cutter that you might use if you like to sew. But it's mechanical and cuts whatever you tell it to from Cricut Design Space. Then you can add tools to the Cricut Maker. You can add things like the knife blade, which allows you to go even deeper than that deep point blade we just used on the Cricut Explorer 2. And today, spoiler alert, we are going to use that knife blade on our project. You can also add things like a perf blade to make perforated cuts. You can add an engraving tip, a deboss tip, a wavy blade, a scoring wheel. There's tons of different options and tools that you can add to the Maker machine, and you can go even thicker and do a whole wide range of materials, many more materials than you can with the Cricut Explorer 2. So it opens up all those possibilities. And if you're like me, so I'm the crafter and I like to dabble in a little bit of everything, the Cricut Maker was the only way to go for me. Now, as you can see, I have all three, but I could not do without my Cricut Maker. So it kind of depends on what type of crafter you are, and you have to decide that through watching videos like these. So today we're going to use the knife blade. So we cut that thin wood veneer with the Cricut Explorer 2. Now we're going to cut a thick basswood with the Cricut Maker. So I can show you that knife blade, and I can show you that it can cut wood that can be used for like structural projects. We're going to cut it, we're going to stain it, we're going to add it to our sign, and then we're going to put that sign together. So let's take a look at a project with the Cricut Maker. So now we're going to use our Maker machine fitted with the knife blade, and we're going to cut some Cricut basswood, the 11 by 11 size sheets. Now, why does basswood come in 11 by 11 size sheets? That is because the star wheels on the Cricut Maker on the bar need to be moved all the way to the right, and you will need room when the basswood is on the mat for those star wheels to run down the side. So the basswood itself comes in 11 by 11 inch sheets. Now this is 1/16 inch basswood. Then we'll need our strong grip mat. We'll need some masking tape, the brayer, and I'm also going to stain this wood once we've completed our cut. So what I'm going to do is just add this basswood to our strong grip mat. Then we can take a look at how much stronger this basswood is than the wood veneer we used with our Explorer. So you can see it's a little flexible, but it's a really rigid piece of wood. So we're going to repeat just about the same procedure as we did with the wood veneer. So we're going to put the basswood on the mat, and we're going to put it all the way into this upper corner. And then we're going to use our brayer and make sure it's down really well on the mat. And then once again, we'll use our masking tape. And I'm going to add masking tape all the way around all 4 edges. Now we can cut our basswood. So I already have my knife blade in the clamp. I have my project pulled up in Cricut Design Space, and I've chosen basswood as my material. So I'm ready to load because this arrow is flashing. And so now we'll just load our mat. And start cutting our design. This will take several passes and quite a long time. So we'll come back and take a look at the finished cuts. So Design Space says this wood will take 14 passes. What I like to do, starting at the halfway mark, so it's went 7 passes, I hit the pause button on my machine, pause the cut, and use something like a weeding tool to kind of lift up the edges. You can also kind of remove the tape a little bit from the edge, and then just kind of start lifting up the cut. So I can tell that this is cut through along this edge, but this corner is not cut through. I can also tell that it's lifting up a little bit on the M. So what I want to do is just watch it, and about every pass or two I'm going to stop, check the cut, see if it's cut all the way. If it's cut all the way, I will then remove it, and if you can tell, I don't know if you can tell, but you can see that that O is almost through. This part's cut and then this part is not yet. When it is cut all the way through, I'll just remove it, no matter how many passes it has left. So the knife blade itself and the Cricut Maker is really powerful, and it actually has the power to cut all the way through your material and your mat if you let it go too long. So I just like to be super careful and start checking it. As soon as it's cut all the way through, I just stop my cut and remove it. So I'm just going to go ahead and unpause this and let it go another pass or two. Alright, so this went 9 out of 14 passes, and some of these pieces were like, they're completely detached, so I went ahead and removed it. If some of the corners are not cut, you can use something like a craft knife to just finish cutting those. This just kind of saves your mat, so if you just watch the cuts, that way it doesn't actually start getting into your mat. I mean, as you can see, this O is almost completely detached except for just like a little bitty piece at the top. And I just find it easier to just go ahead and just finish that off. So that's all there is to that. And then I can do the same thing. So basically at the top again of the inside of the O. Okay, so there's one of our letters. And I'll just continue these other 3 the same way, just finishing any cuts that might be left hanging. And then we'll take a look at our finished cut letters and put our sign together. Alright, so here are my letters all cut out, all 4 of them, and now I wanted to stain them. But I reserve the right to change my mind. I think I've actually decided I want to paint them black. So we're just going to give these a quick coat of paint. Again, you could make these rustic like I did the background, so the sign itself. I think I'm just going to give them 1 coat. And this is a chalk finish paint, so it'll dry super, super fast. Now that I'm painting these, you can kind of see that these are super rigid, right? So even though they're cut fairly thin, it's a super rigid wood. So it's a great way to make your own wood letters right at home if you have the Cricut Maker. So anything this thick is going to require the knife blade, which you can only use with the Cricut Maker. So it is the only machine that has enough force and depth to be able to do projects like this one. So that's why, for me personally, I always need my Maker because I like to experiment with all of these great surfaces. So I'm just going to continue painting these, allow them to dry, and then we'll put our sign together. All right, so we finished those basswood letters with our Cricut Maker. Now, these could stand on their own, like they could be their own home decor. I've also cut out multiple letters, sandwiched them together to make even a thicker letter for other projects, all with my Maker machine. So if you buy wood letters at the craft store to use in your home decor projects, basswood and the Cricut Maker will do it for you. So there's our project with the Cricut Maker. Now we're going to pull all three of these projects together into one cute little sign. But I just want to talk about the Maker just a minute. So the Maker is the machine you want if you want all those tools, all those options, all those materials, and all that power. So let's take a look at the sign itself, pull it together with some glue, and then we'll talk a little bit about the three machines at the end. All right, so here's our sign, painted and dried. The Cricut Maker letters, painted and dried. The Cricut Joy Wreath, all ready to hang. And the wood veneer cut with the Cricut Explorer. I did want to note on this that you want to be sure to keep the dot on that eye because you'll need it for your sign. So let's put this together with some glue. So I'm going to use the Power Tack for the basswood as well as the wood veneer. And I'm actually just going to use my hot glue gun for the wreath itself. Now you could put like a hook on this, but I think I'm just going to use some hot glue around, like underneath where the leaves are. But I'm going to lay everything on the sign first so I can get my placement right. So we'll go ahead and glue this wreath into place. And I'm just going to use some hot glue right behind these leaves so that you can't see it from the front. And we'll just apply it right in place on our sign. Now for the letters as well as the wood veneer, I'm going to use the Power Tack. It is good for wood. And I'm just going to put it on the back of each, put those right on to my sign in place, and allow everything to dry. So there's my finished sign all together. 3 machines, 1 project, simply amazing. This is kind of for illustration purposes. You could definitely make this entire sign just the way I made it with just the Cricut Maker. You could change up and use this wood veneer for the home as well. You can make the entire thing with the Cricut Explorer. You could use vinyl or some other surface for the Bless This Home portion, and you can make it all with the Cricut Joy. So don't think because you have the Cricut Joy, all you can make is the wreath. You could definitely still make yourself a cute sign. Now, in the description below, I will drop a link for the cut file for this project, so you can definitely make it at home. If you just love this Bless Your Home sign, you definitely want to grab that cut file and make it. Now, I hope this helped you kind of illustrate the differences between the 3 Cricut machines and maybe helped you pick your favorite. I have another video that walks through the differences between the 3 machines in a little more detail, so I'm going to link to that below as well. I also have tons of information on my YouTube channel about all 3 machines. If you just want to do a ton of research, I would definitely head on over there, scroll back, start watching some videos, and I hope I can help you decide which machine is right for you. While you're there, you might want to hit that subscribe button. If this video helped you at all, if you enjoyed it, please give us a thumbs up. You can also ask any questions you have in the comment section below. So you watched this whole video, you still have no clue which machine is for you. Drop me a comment below and I will try to help you decide. It really depends on what type of crafter you are, what type of projects you're going to do. So think about the size of the projects you're going to make, as well as the type of materials you're going to cut, and that will help lead you in the right direction as to which Cricut machine is right for you. Personally, I don't think you can go wrong. You can start with the Cricut Joy and sort of move your way up. You can start all the way at the Cricut Maker and just jump right in head first. Either way, I think that you will love your Cricut. And I also think our channel can really help you learn your machine. Now, all 3 of these machines use a program called Cricut Design Space that is free. you can purchase a Cricut Access subscription that will get you some free files and fonts and that type of thing. So I'll link to a video below all about Cricut Access, as well as a beginner series that we have right here on YouTube that will start helping you learn Cricut Design Space. If you don't know already, you can download Cricut Design Space for free if you don't have a Cricut machine. So you can download it and start poking around, understanding how a Cricut works, and that might help you decide what type of machine you want, or if you want to start simple with a Cricut Joy, medium with Cricut Explore, or more complicated with the Cricut Maker. So I hope this has helped. Please ask any questions you have in the comment section, and I will see you next week with another fun Cricut video. Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.